of introducing you to Angela Irwin. So Angela is going to talk to us about confidence and authentic visibility. So I think we can all use a little bit of confidence and authentic visibility here. And Angela has a fun story. She's from South Dakota, and now she lives in Nice in France. So, which happens to be a place that I would love to live. So, Angela, I'm going to be following up with you on that. But, Angela, thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to hear what you have to say, and just go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Well, happy Friday.
Oh, you're muted.
Just muted.
I think that was an accident.
Okay, there we go.
We muted everyone else, and unfortunately we got you there too. So
all right. Well, happy Friday, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you, Christy, for the introduction, and thank you to Tina and John for helping behind the scenes make this all come together. And especially a shout out to Cyrus for making the connection and introducing me to this amazing group. So I am absolutely in a Friday mood. As Christy mentioned, I'm joining you today from Nice in the south of France. It's 5 o'clock, but I couldn't be more pleased than to be with you all here as you're starting your morning. And so thank you so much for being here. I am going to share my slides. Get that going. All right. So I think just to level set quickly, so confidence can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, can bring up a lot of emotions, a lot of beliefs. So for this context, I just wanted to level set from a workplace perspective. Why is confidence important? Why would we want to talk about confidence? Well, as you can see here, these are just like half a dozen ways that I thought of that really how our level of confidence can impact our job performance. And so I think it's important for us as individuals. It's also important for those who might be team leaders or managers. So to understand that our level of confidence can really impact the team performance, department performance, overall company performance, but also it has tentacles that go outside of the business world as well, and how we interact and show up in the world. And so I think probably most of you would agree, if you want to nod your head or give thumbs up or some reaction, these are pretty important aspects of our, for certainly work life, I would think. Would people agree with that? Yeah, okay. So that just sort of level set where I wanted to come from today. So during our time, I just wanted to, I'll have, about 15 minutes of content. Then because we are a big group, we won't do an actual breakout, but I do want to leave you with some takeaway action items. So, sometimes when we come to a training or an information session, we have the best intent when we leave to like, I'm going to implement this, I'm going to do that. And then of course, with this busy world that we're all living in, we can forget, we get distracted, and time has moved on. So I want to be sure that today, as you leave here, you have some action items that you can immediately implement. And then I have some special offers to share with you. And then as the time permits, if you have questions and comments and all of that, I will welcome that. So I just wanted to share kind of what we can expect in our time together today. So thank you so much for being here. So full disclosure, I am the last person who thought that they would be working in the space of confidence, because I thought for the majority of my life that confidence was something that we either had or you didn't have. And I didn't really have it, not deep down in the core. Now, certainly over the course of my 15-year corporate career, I was successful. I had promotions. I've lived and worked all over the globe. But at the deep core, I wasn't confident. And looking back, I definitely know that I needed external validation to feel good about myself, to feel worthy. And for me, the way that that showed up was being a workaholic because I could get praise in that way and I would feel like I would, like I said, feel worthy. So confidence, or really rather the way that we feel about ourselves or the beliefs that we have about ourselves, are actually formed in early childhood. So something that either happened to us, something that was told to us, or something that we observed. And this is usually around the ages of 7 to 9 years old. So we're quite young, we're quite impressionable, and we don't even think to challenge these things. We just simply take them on as fact. And typically, unless there's some reason along the way to challenge those things, those actually act as the guiding light for us, which can be for decades until when and if we have an opportunity to go, wait a minute, is this really true about myself? Is the way I feel about myself and the beliefs that I have about myself, is that really true? And for me, it didn't happen until I had a career change at the age of, or in my early 40s. So the basis of my confidence was formed as I started losing my hearing around the age of 7. And that continued on for the next 15 years until I went completely deaf. So during that time, it made me feel really strong emotions such as shame, massive embarrassment, and brokenness. The brokenness came in because my parents were taking me to numerous hearing health professionals to try to figure out why this was happening. And they all would say the same two things. We have never seen this before in a child, and we have no idea why this is happening. And so what this little girl, at the age of 8, 9, 10-ish, heard was, you are so flawed, you are so broken that none of these professionals can figure out what's wrong with you. So that was the basis of how I felt about myself. But I was able to continue on, put a smile on my face, and continue on, as we do, and not knowing any other way to be. But like I mentioned, when I did that career change in my 40s, I had the opportunity to reevaluate that. And it was a very challenging time. But once I learned that we can actually change the way that we feel about ourselves, we can reprogram our self-acceptance and our self-esteem and build confidence, I knew that's what I wanted to focus my coaching on. And so for the past 8 years, I've had the opportunity to do that because I didn't want anyone else to feel as badly about themselves as I felt about myself in times. And so having that opportunity to come alongside other people and watch them blossom, and it's also been just very therapeutic for me and brought opportunities that I would have never, this little girl, certainly a little girl in South Dakota, would have never imagined. And so today, that what I wanted to start off sharing is some of the things that I know for sure. Much like death and taxes, there's some things I know for sure. So show of hands, who here is 100% confident 100% of the time? So I can't see too many hands, but if I had to venture a guess, most people are not 100% confident 100% of the time. Now, we might think that. I used to believe that, but perhaps a caveat is, if you're not getting out of your comfort zone on the regular basis, then you might not have those feelings of self-doubt and things like that. But typically, as we're getting outside of our comfort zones, and as an example, during times of change, such as being between employment, that can conjure up feelings of wanting to revert to comfort, to be where we are, what we know, what feels comfortable to us. And actually, that is the best time to step out of our comfort zone and share the gifts that we all have. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But that's one of the myths that I'd like to bust, because I think that we, like I mentioned at the beginning, we think people are either confident or they're not, and that's not something that I can change. But as a matter of fact, we can change that. So that's exciting news. Another thing I know for sure is that people are going to judge you no matter what. And especially in this era of social media and that we live in, which that's kind of the ugly side of social media, where people are just so quick to judge and say nasty things. But I like to take it and reframe it a little bit, because really we have this one life. And so we get to decide, how do we want to show up in that one life? Do we want to step past and have the courage to not care what people think? Or are we going to let that hold us back? And so in this one life, people are going to judge us anyway. So we might as well do the things that are important to us. We might as well be more bold and be more courageous, be more vulnerable and authentic, because that's when we can really form deeper relationships. And I don't know if you can maybe think about some times when you've been vulnerable with people, and in a lot of instances, we have fear about that, and we have fear about sharing who we really are. But a lot of times that actually deepens connections and deepens relationships, which can be beneficial in all aspects of our lives. Another thing that I know for sure is the comparison is the thief of all joy. So this kind of goes back with people are going to judge you, but we never have any idea what actually behind what someone else's experience has been. And so it's very easy, again, especially in this social media world that we live in, to look at other people's situations and think, oh, they've, it seems so easy and effortless to them. And I would bet that that's not the case, that they're just have figured out a way to put themselves out there. And I will show some examples of how hopefully that can help you step out more boldly. And then the last thing I know for sure, there's no such thing as perfect. Now, that is something that's very different than excellence. Of course, we can strive for excellence, but a lot of times we hold ourselves back because we're waiting for something to be perfect, which can also show up as, as procrastination, because, we're in fear and we don't want to make a mistake or make a misstep. And so if we can sort of just twist these around and reprogram the way that we think about confidence or putting ourselves out there, I hope that makes it a little bit easier to get into action, because that's really what we're trying to do with confidence. So you may be familiar with the Japanese art of kintsugi, and I just like to throw this in because I think it's such a beautiful thing. So basically the idea is, if they have broken crockery or ceramics, instead of discarding those pieces, they repair them with precious metals and gold. And so that now all of a sudden the broken pieces become the most beautiful and the most valuable. And I just think that is such a beautiful metaphor when we think about our own, our flaws, our uniqueness, our imperfections, because we all have them. And also because we're not meant to be like anyone else. We have all had challenges. We've all had things that have happened to us that have formed the person who we are. And whether those are good, bad, terrible things, all of that makes up us as who we are in this form at this moment in time as a unique individual. And so I just think that highlighting this is such a great reminder to share more of your precious gold and metals and your most valuable parts, which is that sharing of your authentic self. All right, so I mentioned sharing a confidence building cycle. So I have that here. You can see the 3-step process. So basically what this demonstrates is that if we can calm our nervous system, because when we get into fear, when we get into the idea of stepping out of our comfort zone, that's, our brain is saying danger, danger, danger. And so in an attempt to keep us safe, or what it thinks is keeping us safe, we have the stress hormones are released throughout the body. So it physically feels, excuse me, like we can be in danger. And so if we can calm our nervous system, then we can get into action. And then if we get into action, we can apply the learnings. And as we apply learnings, we gain more confidence. So it becomes more easy to get back into action. And so it's just this 3-step cycle. And so I'll break down a little bit more about what each of those steps entails. So the important thing first is you're thinking about stepping out of your comfort zone, and whatever that might look like for you, whether it's, sending an email, making a phone call, sending a text, doing a presentation or something like that. Just remind yourself, just getting into action is that first step. And so I think it's important to have in your back pocket or have locked and loaded some ideas to help you do that. So many of you may already have ideas or things that you use already that can kind of calm your nervous system and be like, right, I'm ready to do the thing, whatever the thing is. And so these are just some examples. Breathing exercises are phenomenal. I mean, even the Navy SEALs use breathing exercises to calm themselves during stressful missions and things like that. So whether you have like some upbeat music that you can listen to, just something that, like I said, can calm your fears, calm your nervous system so that you can get into action. So as I mentioned, confidence is all about taking action. And I think if we can embrace imperfect action, we can get there a little bit faster. Now, there's a misconception, I think, as well, that many people think, I'll be confident when? I'll be confident when I get a different job, when I get a promotion, when I lose the weight, when I get another degree, whatever when is, right? But it actually isn't that way. The only way to build that confidence muscle is to get into action. And that can start with those very small steps. And remember about the kintsugi, which is just being your authentic self, and how that's the most beautiful parts to be able to share, and the skills that you have to offer. But like I mentioned earlier about when we come in that place of fear and doubt, that's when the brain is releasing those chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline, and we can actually feel that all through the body. And so I can remember working in particular with a coaching client a few years ago, and she had just left a corporate job and was now starting her own business. And she knew that she really needed to up her social media game. And so we were having our weekly coaching sessions, and, her homework for a couple of weeks had been to do, at that time, like an Instagram live, or do a live video to talk about her business. And for a couple of weeks, that did not happen. So around the third week, so I'm like, all right, what's happening? Where are we getting stuck with taking this action? Because it said, you shared with me that is something that you want to do and that it's important for your business. And she just, was having a little bit of trouble articulating exactly what the issue was. And so I framed it a different way. And I said, so what's the worst thing that could happen if you do a live video on social media? And without taking a breath, she said, I could die. And we both just busted out laughing. And I will say, I make it a point not to laugh at my clients, but it was so palpable in that moment because of the adrenaline, the cortisol was flowing through her whole body. She really felt in that moment that much fear. And so obviously the laughter, broke that down a little bit. And she, was able to, like we say, sort of calm the nervous system. And then, of course, I said, all right, so as soon as we get off this call, you're going to do it. It's like rip the Band-Aid off, because the longer that we stay in what I refer to as that void or that place of inaction, that's when fear and self-doubt are going to come and hold your hands. They're happy to stay there with you. But if we can rip that Band-Aid off and get into action. So of course, you can probably guess what happened. Like all of us have done many, many times, she came back and said, oh, that wasn't so bad. I'm really looking forward to the next one. Like, right? Like how many times do we build something up in our mind and then we do it and it's like, well, that wasn't so bad. So when we can get into that imperfect action, that's the second step of the cycle. And then apply your learnings. And I think what's really important in this phase is give yourself grace and self-compassion. So one of my first coaching mentors had a saying, and she would say, it's going to be awkward until it's elegant. And I really like that. It's going to be awkward until it's elegant, because the first time we try anything, and you think of professional athletes, professional musicians, whatever it might be, very few people start whatever they're successful at and it's amazing and excellent right out the door, right? It takes time to develop and it takes practice. And by applying these things, we can get into that practice. So the things that we learn through taking actions, we can apply, we get more practice, and then all of a sudden we feel more confident. And then that inspires to get into even faster action and more action. So that's really the confidence builder cycle that I wanted to share with you today. So what I would like to do now, and this isn't going to be like an actual breakout, like I said, but I think it's important to have some takeaway, like what are you going to do when you leave here? And so this is what I'd like you to do. Take a few minutes, and if you either want to like write it down on a piece of paper, if you're old school like me, I like to write stuff down, or if you want to put it in your phone, whatever it might be. So if you don't have already, so have one or two mood boosters like at the ready. Like what is it that you're gonna do to shift your mood, to shift your mindset, calm the nervous system, and get in a place of action. So if you want to write down one or two things that you can then plan to get at the ready. And then so maybe it's like putting together an upbeat playlist, and that's something that you can do over the the next few days or something like that, just to have some of these mood boosters, as I like to call, at the ready to get you into confident action. And then the second thing is to think of a task or think of something that you've been wanting to do that you've been putting off because maybe perhaps self-doubt has creeped in or you're just not feeling confident about something. So if you can think of something in that space, and then I would challenge you to complete it within the next 24 hours. So again, it's that idea of get into the imperfect, quick action, rip the Band-Aid off, put a deadline in your calendar, set a reminder in your phone, whatever it is, anything to sort of help you get set up to take that confident action. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that. How's everyone doing? Are you coming up with some items? Yeah. Awesome. I can't see the chat, unfortunately, when my screen is shared. Maybe I'll stop sharing. Think we're doing okay for time?
We're okay for time. We do have a question.
Okay.
If you can reshare the what I know for sure slide.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm seeing the chat now. So imperfect action would really be the goal, because from that cycle, then we can get feedback, we can learn, and then apply those learnings to get back into more imperfect action. But it's just about getting into action, taking the feedback, getting learning, not being afraid of missteps, because we're all going to make missteps. We're human. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. New Spotify playlist. Awesome. Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. What we can do, any things like that that, can help you just to quickly do like a reset, a reframe, get you into a better mood. Perfect example is, playing the fun music at the start of this call. It gets everybody kind of moving around and in a good mood. And that sets you up for a great day and, great interactions. Music and exercise. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, comparison is the thief of all joy. Isn't that one? Oof, that can just, just deflate you like a balloon. And of course, it's human nature to look at other people and think, oh, that would be awesome, or that seems effortless. And I'm a student of watching like documentaries and interviews of successful people and famous people, and it's so interesting. A few things that always seem to pop out is that people, no matter how famous or successful they are, they still get nervous. They still get nervous before they're doing something. And I think, again, that might be one of the things that is a bit of a misconception, because we think, oh, certainly Billy Joel doesn't get nervous before a performance. Well, guess what? He does. How many times millions of times he's played those songs. And the thing I love about what most people share in those situations were they wouldn't be, if they were no longer nervous, then they say, I should hang it up, because then I'm not passionate, or I'm not as involved emotionally, or whatever it might be. So I like to think of it that way too. It's like, okay, yes, we're going to feel nervous as we're stepping out of the comfort zone. That, again, that's the brain trying to keep us safe, and the doubt can creep in. But if we have some tools that can help us overcome that and take those imperfect actions, it just becomes easier and easier. And we literally build that confidence muscle, just like you can build your other muscles when you do some, weightlifting or whatever it might be to keep your body active. Oh, John, that's a great one. take out my old paper to dump and declutter. Decluttering can be such a game changer. I don't know if any of you have had that experience. I'm sure some of you have, but what do they say? A cluttered mind is a cluttered life. You know, if you have clutter everywhere, it can feel very heavy and it can impact our mood. So that's a good one. Awesome. Yeah, so we've got some yoga poses and things like that. Energetic playlist. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, question. Clarify different than excellent. Is it possible to define? Okay, so the no such thing as perfect. I should have explained that a little more. So thank you for asking for clarification around that. Perfect is a word that I just wish could be eradicated from the English language. There is no such thing as perfect. Like you know, it's just we're flawed human beings. You know, we all have things. Now, where I say that's different than excellence, it's because we can strive for excellence, right? We might want to get better at a certain skill. We might want to learn a new skill, especially if we're in between jobs or we're wanting to up level, looking for a promotion or something like that. We can acquire new skills, and certainly that takes practice and that, you know, that repetition to become excellent at something. But the problem with perfection, or the idea of perfection, is it typically can keep people stuck because they won't share something. You know, maybe somebody, I'll just use this as an example from a workplace setting. You know, I can remember one time one of the ladies that I was managing she was so capable and so bright. She just was so stuck on this one project and, you know, kept coming back around to her. She was missing deadlines. I said, you know, tell me what's going on, because this does not seem like your normal. And what we ended up discovering, a little painful discovery, was, you know, it was a different sort of project than she had ever done before. She was feeling a lot of pressure, and she was so intent on it being perfect that she wouldn't show me anything. I'm like, this is having the reverse reaction that you're hoping for, because now we've missed deadlines. You know, now, you know, my bosses are saying, where's this deliverable? And it's because she got just so stuck in the negative emotions and the fear that if this isn't perfect, that's going to mean that I'm not perfect. Or, you know, that was sort of what came out of that discussion. And so it's important, I think, to sort of differentiate oneself from an action or a project or something. It's not you. So for example, the fabulous Brene Brown, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and her amazing TED Talks on vulnerability. If you haven't seen them, or maybe you want a refresher, go back and listen to them again, because they are amazing. But when she talks about particularly the negative emotions, they can become so powerful that we think we're the emotion. So shame is the one that comes to mind really distinctly, because she defines shame as, or you know, having flaws or something like that is, oh, I did something bad. But shame is, I am bad. And if we get so caught into like the idea of perfection, that has that heavy of a negative feeling and a negative emotion that we, in this case, that colleague of mine, she was like, if I don't put out this perfect thing, that means that I'm terrible at my job, I'm going to be fired. Like, she had all of that narrative running through her head. And so that's why I don't like the word perfect. And if we can sort of change our perspective on that, reframe that to, yes, let's strive for excellence, absolutely. And that's where that confidence cycle, the 3-step cycle, can help us get to building that excellence, can build that confidence muscle. So I hope that answers that question. Let me see here. Awesome. Yep. Yep. Okay. Excellent. So just checking time. I want to be cognizant of your time as you're starting out your day. Oh, here's one that I missed. So flipping the script on negative self-talk. Absolutely. That is so important. And in just a second, I have some giveaways to share with you, and I'll just make the link right now. So I have a free resource that I call the 3 C's, but it's all about silencing that inner critic. And that is like one of the very first things that I work on with my coaching clients when we start working together is shutting down that inner critic and that negative self-talk. Again, it's something that most of us don't even realize that we're doing it is on autopilot so much. And that free resource that I have, it helps you just sort of, okay, stop and pay attention to what your thoughts are. There's so much data around that that's absolutely overwhelming, but the numbers are, something quite a large range around the amount of thoughts that we have in a day. Just as a conservative number from the research, we'll say 70,000 thoughts a day. But usually 80% of those thoughts are negative. And 90% of those negative thoughts are repetitive. And so that you hit on a great point there. So imagine all day long, we have this narrative running through about negative things about ourselves. So that's a free resource that I want to give you all as a thank you for joining in today. Just check the... Yeah, that's good. All right, awesome. So everyone has something in their toolbox, as I like to say, a tool that they can have at the ready to calm that nervous system and get into a place to take some imperfect, also I like to say inspired action. So let me go ahead here, get back onto the slides. Okay, so what I will do now is just a quick summary of what we've covered, some of the key points, and then, like I said, I have some offers that I would love to share with you. And then if we have more time, I'm happy to answer any additional questions or comments in the chat. So thank you so much. All right. So just a recap, the time goes so quickly when you think it's, we think we have an hour, it goes by so quickly. So just a little bit of a summary of what we covered. So embrace the awkward, the uncomfortable. So like I said, when shared with my mentor saying it's awkward until it's elegant. So embrace that, and that makes the cycle a little bit easier as we get into these process of building our confidence. Share your gold. The going back to the idea of the kintsugi, share more of the unique individual that you are with the rest of the world in your workplaces as you're perhaps maybe looking for new opportunities and things like that. That's when the deeper connections can be had, and people can get to know you on a deeper and more authentic level. I love that one. And then utilize this 3-step confidence builder cycle just to get that muscle, and all of a sudden it can become second nature. You know what to do to get yourself into action, and all of a sudden, just like with my client, oh, that wasn't so bad, But like I said, in the moment, it feels really, really powerful and really, really scary. So, and then remember that this is sort of going back to the kintsugi and how we're all unique individuals. We're not meant to be like anyone else. So if you get into those moments of doubt or of fear, I'd like to leave you with this thought that no one can do exactly what you can do in the exact way that you can do it. So I'll just repeat that because I think it's worthy of repeating. No one can do exactly what you can do in the exact way that you can do it, because it's all your unique individual experiences that you've had through your life that make you who you are, and no one else can replicate it in exactly the same way. And so this is a mantra. If you like to use mantras, this is a great one to repeat to yourself again as a way to sort of calm the nervous system as you're moving into your imperfect action.
I love that image.
So as a thank you gift for being here, I do have, like I mentioned, so the very first one is the free resource. And here's the link to that to quiet down your inner critic and quiet down those negative thoughts. And then we can get even deeper into reprogramming those negative thoughts, and which brings greater self-acceptance, which is really at that foundational level of what's under that confidence, sort of what I was alluding to earlier. So there's this topic has such a broad reaching tentacles that, you know, we can only touch on a few things, but that would be definitely a recommendation to have some support with silencing your inner critic. That's a really important one. And I'm offering as a second offer, I call it Confidence Coaching Light. It's something new that I've developed because the world seems really heavy still at the moment. You know, we thought maybe post-COVID, things might lighten up a bit. It feels like it hasn't. I talked to a lot of people who are like, I really want to work on my confidence, but in the past, I've had, you know, sort of weekly hour-long sessions that are a little more intense. So what I developed was a little lighter take on the confidence coaching, but it's still keeping people making progress. So there's a link there that you can access that to get more information. And then I would like to offer you a complimentary 30-minute session that you can use the time however you want. If it's to go in deeper into some of the topics that we talked about today, or if you know, you have a specific goal that you want to break down with me, however you want to utilize it, you can scan that QR code. No strings attached. It's just a gift to you for being here today, and me wanting to help people get into that action a bit quicker and more easily. So if you have any questions about any of that, you can email me if you want to take a photo of this particular slide. That might be helpful. So yeah, so with that, I would just like to say, you know, again, thank you for being here. And, you know, it's interesting to see the journey that a person could come on from, like I shared with you, that little girl feeling shame and embarrassment and feeling broken, to being able to reprogram that and help other people improve the way that they feel about themselves and show up in the world. So I thank you for your attention. And looks like we have a few more minutes, I think, if anybody wants to ask some questions or further comments in the chat.
So let's go ahead, and I think, Russ, you've had your hand up. Did you
Yes,
have a
thank you.
question?
I do, and actually kind of a supportive statement. Thank you for going back to where we talked about the social media and the you say the false narrative that can promote.
So here's the summary slide. Hopefully that's helpful.
I'm sorry. What is
That's
that?
okay. Go ahead, Russ.
Okay.
Going back to
I had a particular case where in specific, and that my sister had introduced me to someone who was a classmate of?
Yes. So a question about the 3 C's. That's that free resource on how to quiet down your inner critic. So the 3 C's are catch the thought, challenge the thought, and change the thought. So we want to reprogram it, but it is that first step is just to be aware and even go so far as to write down or take note of some of the thoughts that are coming in, because I think you will be surprised. I have yet to have someone come and not say, holy cow, I cannot believe all the terrible negative things I say to myself all day long, right? And we, like I said, we don't know that we're doing it. It's just on autopilot in the subconscious. And when we can sort of take control of that and go, okay, wait a minute, we can really flush. It's almost like the decluttering of the negative thoughts is a better way to put it.
Okay. Because I was asking a question.
Angela, can you hear us, Angela?
It's someone, sorry.
Yeah, I'm asking a question. I was kind of in the middle of it.
I think she can't hear us.
Okay.
Tina, can you help her? Angela, are you able to hear us?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry,
Russ is going to ask you a question.
Yes, and that's what I was. Thank you. The point, going back to the point about the earlier with the social media and about how the false narrative that can create. I was sharing that I had an example of that where my sister introduced me to somebody who was a classmate of hers 40 years ago in med school, who's now doing a business, an MLM that used to be called Visaya. It became this company 3. And the way it was, and I met him last Saturday and his wife. So finally, because we had communicated, and he's in Florida and I'm in Connecticut, and I was turned off by kind of what came across as a sort of flashy, look at how great my life is on social media. Like we was like showing, oh, I went to this amazing place. It was like, because not that it wasn't really that it may have been it was authentic, possibly, though. Why would somebody show something other than that?
Yep. That's such a great
or is that,
question.
yeah, so my question is that too negative on the flip side of believing that, or saying, you know what, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, probably, or thinking that?
So I think it's a little nuanced,
Yes.
to be honest. I think that, some people want to only show the positive things and the highlight reel, as we call it. We all know that's not real life. There's not a soul amongst us who is not having some sort of a challenge. And I think particularly at this time, I don't know about you all, but I can't think of a single friend or client that I have at the moment that's not going through something pretty heavy. And everyone is just like, oh my gosh, it's just like, wow. And that in part perhaps might be a coping mechanism for someone to just be like, I'm going to just show the highlight reel. But that's where we go back to that vulnerability. And it takes, again, the fabulous Brene Brown, vulnerability is not a weakness, it's sheer courage. It takes absolutely more courage to come out on social media, if that's your thing, and say, oof, I'm in a dip right now, or oh my gosh, this thing happened, or oh, I lost my job. Whatever it might be, people aren't really as quick to offer up those things, even though they're normal life patterns. It's going to happen to all of us most of us, most things at some stage. But, again, like you're saying, maybe it's questioning around, is that true? But ask yourself this: would you have had a deeper connection if you knew it wasn't just a highlight reel? If someone is putting out like, wow, I'm having a tough time right now. I mean, my goodness, the mental health crisis globally, most of us are impacted in some way. And I think that if we can kind of going back to that at what I said at the beginning. How do we want to show up? We've got just this one life. How do we want to show up? Do we want to have deeper connections? Do we want to be more authentic? That requires vulnerability. It really does. There's really not a way around it, because otherwise, if we're showing only the highlight reels, many people are going to have that same perception that you described. And the sad thing is it might hold you guys back from having that deeper relationship.
It's mental health awareness.
Does that answer
Yes,
your
it does.
question?
It's Mental Health Awareness Month, by the way.
Right? That's an
Yeah.
excellent point.
Yeah, it does, and thank you. It's something that's been reinforced.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
So
Thank
that's a reminder for us. Share your gold, share your kintsugi, be more authentic. And when that fear sets in, and it will, like I said, this isn't a situation when we're trying to manage our mindset and build confidence. This isn't a thing. Like the example I used with Billy Joel, and like super famous people are like, of course I still get nervous. Of course I get, like, that's another misconception. I think is we think, okay, well, at some point this is going to go away. Well, if you're continuing to have, continuing to grow, continuing to seek new skills and new opportunities and challenges, it's going to repeat itself. But the good news, and having some tools like this, is you're ready for it. And by being ready for it, then you minimize what I referred to earlier as being in that void, that the place where the negative emotions are kick in and can take over and can just keep you paralyzed. That is not where we want to be. I'm not saying don't feel negative emotions, but if we can minimize the time spent there and we can move out of those into action, then that's so much better for us and for all the people who are around us as well.
Yeah.
Angela, thank you so much for all you have done. I want to be mindful of the time. We have about a minute left. I mean, such great nuggets. You're awkward until it's elegant. I love that phrase, right? And one thing I learned from boot camp was perfection. You're never going to get there. Be perfect enough. Right? That was one thing that I was taught in boot camp, because you can be paralyzed, and that's what you're telling us, right? Get over that, move forward. Just wonderful confidence building. One thing, I know you're not sharing your slides, but you all will have access to the recording. Am I right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. If you could, will we have the ability to share your one slide that talked about what you're offering for those that may not have taken a picture? Or
absolutely.
Yeah, that will be summarized, and I'll send it around later.
John,
this
you're
afternoon.
always on top of everything. Thank
of course.
you. Angela, once again, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. This was inspiring. So we move into the weekend with confidence and new energy. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Awesome. So much my pleasure. Thank you so much for all of your attention and participation, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Angela.
You too. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Happy weekend, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.